Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to another World of Tanks video. This time we're going to have a look at some games from a couple of mid-ish tier light tanks. And they're at two opposite ends of the spectrum, but they have something in common, which is a tiny puny gun. So we are kicking off with Careless One here, driving the AMX ELC BIS. Now, you might be thinking, if you know anything about this machine, what's he talking about? A tiny weedy little gun. The AMX packs a 90mm gun, which for a tier 5 light tank is hilarious. Well, this one isn't. Now, I think this might be the first game that Careless played in this tank, but he is using the 75mm gun with 110 damage and 100 penetration. Goes up to 129 penetration with APCR. Still perfectly fine at tier 5 on a light tank. The other advantage you get is that with the big gun, the AMX ELC has a really narrow gun traverse, and with the smaller gun you get a proper fully traversable turret. He is in an all tier 5 game here, and we are on Cliff. It's Cliff. And we're going to see what he can do. Now, I used to really like the AMX ELC. Or it used to be called the ELC AMX, go figure. And so I kept it for a while, and then Wargaming changed it, and that made me sad. So when they rebalanced all the light tanks such that they didn't see tier +1 matchmaking anymore, so it used to be the case, well, a long time ago, light tanks didn't go higher than tier 5, and tier 4 light tanks would get into tier 8 games, but it used to be the case, not quite that long ago, that light tanks used to be match-made as if they were a tank 1 tier higher than they were. So the AMX ELC here would have been match-made as if it were a tier 6. So it would see tier 6, 7 and 8 games. Then they changed it and they just get sort of more conventional matchmaking. But in the doing of that, they changed this tank. They made it slower and some other things. And the long story short, it meant that I didn't enjoy it as much anymore, so I didn't keep it. Ooh, enemy AMX ELC's up here. So, I don't have this thing anymore, which was a shame, because I used to really like this little thing. Like, it was hilarious, you control people so hard with it. Because it's such a low-profile machine, it used to be even lower, that if you got close, often people just couldn't shoot you. It was quite funny. And then you'd have to do this weird sort of back off, hit them with the 90mm gun, and people would go, "No, that's a 90mm gun on a tier 5. And it was quite funny. Anyway, that's not what we've got here. So, Careless is trying to be a little bit careful. See what I did there? Because the enemy ELC is already here, and the enemy ELC, you can see from the muzzle brake on his gun, has the big gun, but that means he's fired, and he's got a long reload on that gun. And as it is, it means that Careless is able to force the guy off of the hill because the guy fired when, well, I don't know what sort of shot he had, but it can't have been amazing. So, the scoreline is currently 3-2, which is, that's alright, as the enemy AMX actually crashes trying to get down the hillside, which is kind of funny. And Careless is trying to see if he can find some shots over here, or find some spots over here on enemy tanks. He's got binos to help. You might often find people using binos, especially at the sort of mid-tiers, where you just don't have the raw view range to, well, get a good view range, really, and so coated optics just don't quite cut the mustard anymore. It's interesting, actually, this is something that Quickie Baby has commented on in one of his recent videos, because, for those of you who don't know, he now, these days, has a free-to-play account, so that he can find out what it's like to be a free-to-play player. And he's coming to the conclusion that, you know what, when you don't have your tank decked out with all the premium consumables in the world and everything, the game is different and certainly considerably more difficult. Go figure, welcome to the world that most of us live in. Oh, a couple of bounces there deprives Careless of the kill on the Stug. Yeah, so what you often find is that means, whereas you might find one of these really good players who also runs a premium account with shed tons of gold and all that jazz, whereas they might usually be packing a premium consumable, which Careless actually is here. He's running the coffee and buns or whatever it is, strong coffee. You might be running a premium consumable, vents, directives and things like that, and I'm sure I'll complain about directives in another video. a lot of players, for them, that's not really a realistic option. And so instead of running vents and whatnot, you might find they run coated optics, or if it's a mid-tier tank, you might even be forced to run binos, mid to low tier. But anyway, that's a bit of an aside. Basically, Careless is just up here pew-pew-pewing all of the bad guys. Now, he's actually firing APCR here, but you can see that the penetration on the APCR ammo isn't amazing on this gun. So even firing that, he really needs to pick his shots carefully. In fact, if he were to go for shots on the bum of that KV, he might have a bit more success. Flat side is one thing. Angled side is a rather different kettle of fish. And this is one of the reasons why people tend, when they can, to upgrade this gun. Now, I believe, like I said, this is actually Careless's first game in this tank, so he hasn't got that option. But, as it is, he's trying to fire quite a bit of APCR here to make up for his lack of penetration with what is, I believe, the stock gun. The regular gun, by the way, although the stock gun here is packing about 120 penetration with APCR, the regular gun is, if memory serves, it's around 130 pen with regular AP ammo. Though, of course, again, the flip side is you don't get a fully traversable turret. No, that's not quite enough. Needed to lead that shot a little bit more. Ooh, accidentally nudges the M4. Nonetheless, Careless has managed to pick up 936 assistance damage, almost 1300 regular damage, which at tier 5 is quite a respectable amount. And he's just going to try and see what he can see. So sit there for a moment and binos up, really get that view range going, but he's not going to be able to see those guys over there. They are outside of the render range of the game, so he's just not going to be able to see them. But he can blind fire their bushes, I suppose, and convince them to take some cover. And I wanted to show this game, not necessarily because it's like an awesome mega carry, it's not, but it is quite nice to see someone doing relatively well in this thing with the stock gun, frankly. It's nice to show some tanks that aren't fully upgraded, that, you know, someone is doing the grind through, so to speak. And also, it kind of is a nice comparison with the machine I've got for you next. Anyway, IKV goes to a better place. Careless is trying to pick out a shot here, but there isn't too much of this game left. Enemy AMX13AM goes to a better place. And, oh, that Crusader's going to have a bad day. He is dead. There's only 2 of them left at this point. And we're just going to speed this along a little bit to see if Careless can pick up any more damage or kills on the enemy team. That's not really a clean shot. There's a rocky outcrop in the way, so just speeding this along a little bit. And Careless is going to come down here. There's the enemy M41 HMC artillery piece left, the American. And there's that T67. Finds the artillery. Oh, that shot was a miss. Come on, get the kill. Yes, there we go. That just leaves this T67 remaining. And we'll see if Careless can pick this one up as well. Can he do it? Can he do it? As the vultures close in on this poor little tank destroyer who's gone to the other side of the map, kills the friendly artillery and eventually gets taken down by the Chaffee, and that is the game. Let's have a look at the stats for this one. So in the end, that was enough for Ace Tanker, Bruiser, Fire for Effect, Confederate and High Caliber. So that ended up being pretty decent result, even though it wasn't like a bazillion kills or anything like that. 1,501 damage done in the end, meaning a couple of those blind shots did actually hit. 2 kills, 1,032 base experience, finished top of his team. M4 Sherman on the friendly team also did more than 1,000 damage, and none of the enemy team did, and that's really the difference right there, if we're going to be honest. 34 shots fired, 24 hits, 14 pens for that damage count, most of which was from longer range as Careless was sniping quite a lot. Over 1,000 assistance damage as well into the bargain. 2.25 kilometers travelled, which for an ELC isn't that much, but again, Careless was sitting there quite a lot and sniping. Now, quite expensive ammunition resupply costs there because Careless was packing 20-something, I think, rounds of APCR and he burned through them all. But again, remember, that was with the stock gun, so it's not as if it was giving him obscene penetration. It was in fact less penetration than he would have, or comparable penetration, I can't quite remember, to what he would have with the top 90mm gun. So, swings and roundabouts, but it means he didn't make a profit in that game, even with a premium account. Respectable amount of XP though, so that should have helped his grind through the AMX a reasonable amount. Anyway, we've got another light tank game for you as the second match of this video, and again, the machine's a little bit different, but it still suffers from small gun syndrome. So, second match then, and we're back on Cliff. This is exactly the same map as the previous game, and this is one of mine. As you can see, I am driving the Tier 4 Sentinel. Now, this is a light tank, big air quotes, in the British tech tree. I mean, if you want to get pedantic about it, it's actually an Australian tank, or was an Australian tank, but there's no Australian or even Commonwealth tech tree in the game, so it's here on the British tech tree. Now, this is, strictly speaking, a light tank. It's at tier 4, so we're still sort of mid-tier, but unlike the AMX ELC, which is, you know, not too slow, this thing, whilst it has a respectable top speed, and you can see we hit 50 kilometers an hour going downhill there, it's a bit like the Mighty Duck tank, the AMX 40. The engine power leaves a bit to be desired, and so when you're not going downhill, suddenly you find the speed drops off, and this is actually quite a sluggish and slow machine most of the time. You'll notice I'm also using binos. Again, the base view range on this tank sucks, so I am mounting binos on it so that I can actually do something meaningful with it when it comes to spotting. And I mentioned that this also suffers from small gun syndrome. This is using the same 40mm 2-pounder gun that you use on the British tech tree at tier 2. And tier 1, potentially, now that they've rejigged it. I can't quite remember, but the point is, the gun sucks. And you might think, well, okay, well, how bad can it be? It does 45 damage per shot. Okay, 88 penetration. So, strictly speaking, it is actually a slightly buffed version of that gun. It doesn't have 60 pen and 40 alpha damage, but 45 alpha damage and 88 penetration at tier 4. Well, okay, presumably it has blistering DPM. Nope. The reload on this tank is such that actually the DPM is quite poor. And the aim time sucks. The soft stats are rubbish. Basically, this is a terrible, terrible gun. And yes, I just bounced on a T-37. And I'm in a tier 6 match. I'm at the bottom of the pool here. Oh dear. And you can just see it takes me so long to aim. And I'd like to point out, I don't use vents on this thing. I use a gun rammer. And I bounced on the side of a Somua SAL-40. And, ooh, got a kill though. And I use a gun laying drive because the aim time is so dreadful. And I've taken one hit already. But anyway, we're gonna make this work. Like, I have quite a lot of terrible tanks that people seem to like me playing. Hello, Churchill gun carrier, I'm looking at you. Anyway, this is a 14 TP who is in a terrible position, and I'm just gonna machine gun. Well, I say machine gun. It's like a machine gun that fires rubber bullets. It might fire them relatively quickly, but if they don't do any damage, like, who cares? Anyway. The scoreline's 5-3. I'm just blazing away and pick up a blind kill here, by the way. The scoreline's 5-3. Tier 6 match, as I mentioned. Now, if we actually look at the Tier 6 on the enemy team, the T-37 has already died. There's also an Easy 8 Sherman and a Stritzwang 74. So actually, if we look at the enemy team overall, there isn't that much in the way of heavy armour. Although it's bottom tier, the Matilda is one of the most heavily armoured tanks they're packing, and of course, this BDR. And so what that means is that despite the fact that I'm bottom tier with a terrible gun, I can get away most of the time without spamming that APCR button. With APCR, by the way, the pen jumps up to 121, which is the base pen of the Matilda's 2-pounder. Just let that sink in for a moment. Anyway, so yeah, I can actually do some damage with the regular AP ammunition, but after all that blazing away, I've done less than 600 damage. I've fired about 25 shots and done less than 600 at tier 4. Oh dear. Well, at least the scoreline's 8-4, right? We appear to be winning this. So, just going to go up into these bushes and see if we can spot some people, try and use these binos. Maybe we can spot out the Marder or the BDR, or hello, Mr. Chaffee, how are you today? You doing good? I hope you're doing good. Anyone? Oh, that makes me sad. Stritzwang 74 over there, though, and I had shots into his butt. Ah, well. Oh, there's the Easy 8. Managed to get a really lucky hit in there for a mighty 44 damage. Oh, mighty. Some assistance, though, we're racking up here, and there's the Marder. See if we can do something about this guy. But despite the fact that guy's tier 4, that gun, of course, can still do some damage. One more shot would finish this guy off a bit like that, and there we go. There's kill number 3 now, if you can believe it. 3 kills! And just over 800 damage. And now we face an easy 8. And, well, this is where I was thinking of firing. I fire one APCR shell, but it misses. Like, the Easy 8 is not the most heavily armoured tier 6 in the world, but it's still a tier 6. So this gun is still going to struggle. 9-7. So actually the enemy team has pulled this back a little bit. They've gone from being 4 kills down to being 2 kills, 1 kill down. Oh dear. And if we actually look at what tanks are left on each team, we've lost both of our, well, 2 of our tier 6s, I should say. Bounced on a T67, you don't say that very often. We've lost 2 of our tier 6s, and the enemy team has only lost 1. Oh! Oh, and then the enemy T67 makes a terrible mistake. And could that be the game thrown right there for them? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, we're up to 880 damage done now. But what I was saying is, despite the fact that we have a numerical advantage, in terms of quality of tank, they have the advantage. We still have 2 tier 4s left alive. The tier 4s are all dead on the enemy team. So, yeah, it's not always quite as simple as just looking at the scoreline and going, oh god, we're losing! Or, oh god, we're winning! This is actually quite close. I'm still trying to use my view range to see if I can spot anyone. I haven't really got any good shots on that BDR. Oh no. One shot there with regular AP. Can we kill this guy? Oh, he's on 8 health. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Kill number 4. And on the BDR, that is a very valuable kill. And as we're doing that, our friendly AMX manages to take out the Slitzwang 74, and suddenly there's only 3 of them left. A Chaffee, a Type T34, on 3 kills, I'd like to point out. Never mind, the Chaffee's gone. And the Sherman. Oh, speak of the Sherman, this is bad. He's potentially got me banged to rights, but I managed to force him off. He is now a one-shot for anyone, really. Come on, can we nail this Sherman? Yes, we can. Beautiful. Kill number 5, and oh no, don't stop for this Type T34. Well, I think... Alright, so here's my thinking there. And actually the guy dies, and that's the end of the game. So my thinking there is, I'm basically in the open for this guy. He's firing APCR at me, so my armor's never going to do anything, but even if I try and get into cover, I'm so slow and sluggish, I'm probably not going to make it. He's probably going to kill me anyway. Let's at least try and get some damage in on him. And as it is, we're able to just before the match ends. There we go. Bottom tier in a rubbish tank. Let's go and have a look at the post-game stats. So that match ended up being enough for Ace Tanker, Fire for Effect, Fighter, Bruiser and a Loverschleier's medal for killing higher tier tanks. I do like getting the awards for taking on bigger opponents. It just gives me a little bit of satisfaction right there. 1,263 damage done, 5 kills, 1,078 base experience, all in a rubbish tank as bottom tier, which I was quite pleased with. Commiserations to the enemy Type T34, as well as his, in the end, 4 kills. He actually did over 1,000 damage, so a good game from him, just not enough to pull his team across the finishing line. In fact, looking at both teams, the top tiers, the tier 6s had a really underwhelming performance. If we look at the enemy team, okay, the T37 did alright, Slitzwang did alright, but it's still a Type T34 at the top there. The Sherman, the Easy 8, 343 damage in an Easy 8, that's just not very good. If you look at our team, it's even more pronounced. You go right the way down the score list, and it's not until you get to the A43 that you find a tier 6. And that's 642 damage. And then what? How much from the MT25? 261. And if we keep going, our Easy 8 was still alive at the end of the match, having done nothing. Well, that's just a bit depressing. 51 shots fired, 40 hits, 31 penetrations for that 1,263 damage, which is a lot of DACA for a really underwhelming amount of damage. But anyway, 4 hits received, all of them penned. The Sentinel does have a little bit of armour, but it's not going to work against higher tier tanks. 9 enemy vehicles damaged, 5 destroyed, 895 assistance damage, 1.33 kilometers travelled, and even though I fired a couple of rounds of APCR, and even though it was a standard account, we still made an 18,500 credit profit. And a respectable amount of experience into the bargain, and of course, a bond there for picking up the Loverschleier's medal. So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed those games in a couple of very different light tanks that were suffering from small gun syndrome. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel, and as ever, I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.